The Golden State Warriors find themselves at a crossroads rarely seen in NBA history. It is not just about winning games, competing for titles, or preserving the prestige built over the years. It is something deeper, almost philosophical. The franchise that redefined modern basketball is facing a dilemma that transcends tactics, contracts, and statistics. It is the pursuit of preserving an identity, an attempt to prove that a dynasty can evolve without falling apart. That greatness does not need to have an expiration date. In the stands, fans still celebrate as always. The chants, the applause, the mystique, everything seems the same. But those who look closely perceive a silent transformation. The veteran players continue to lead, but their steps now carry a different weight. The battles already won, the accumulated physical pain, the body that no longer responds with the same agility. They still shine, still captivate, but they know intimately that time has become an invisible opponent. And for the first time in many years, Golden State begins to look not at the top of the mountain, but at the path that comes after. It is in this scenario that the whispers emerge, rumors, speculations, ideas that until recently would have seemed improbable. One of them carries a name that divides opinions, provokes debates, and stirs the imagination: Ja Morant. The explosive point guard, owner of an electric, unpredictable, and almost untamable style, appeared as a possibility, not a concrete negotiation, but an idea. A spark, a dream of reinvention embedded in the essence of a player who seems to live in a constant state of adrenaline. Could he be the symbol of a new era? Morant represents exactly what the Warriors seek, even without saying it. Youth, audacity, verticality, energy. Everything an aging team longs for to remain relevant and vibrant. But at the same time, he brings with him unpredictability, a strong personality, the need for a solid structure. And Golden State knows that any talented star only truly shines in the right place. The fit is not just technical, it is cultural. In Memphis, Morant lives through highs and lows. He dazzles with unforgettable plays, but at the same time shows signs of disconnection, a silent restlessness, as if trapped between the desire to be a protagonist and the need to find purpose. Behind the scenes, some executives see in him something more than an athlete. They see a turning point, a bridge between eras. Under the guidance of experienced leaders within a demanding and disciplined system, Morant could transform his energy into impact, his rebelliousness into purpose. The Golden State environment, molded by years of collectivism, intelligence, and competitive humility, might be exactly what he needs to evolve. And perhaps he is exactly what Golden State needs to reignite the spark that once set the league on fire. But he is not the only one. Another name has gained strength in the discreet corridors of the Chase Center. A name that does not captivate through spectacle, but through consistency. That does not attract attention with dunks, but with solidity. A player who personifies balance, discipline, and defensive intelligence, Bam Adebayo. The Miami Heat center has become one of the most respected figures in the league, not only for his skill but for his mindset. He represents stability, maturity, continuity. Adebayo is exactly the type of athlete who naturally fits into the Golden State philosophy. Versatile, intelligent, team-oriented. He is capable of being a defensive anchor, an offensive creator, and a silent mentor. He does not transform a game with one extraordinary play, but transforms a team with his presence. And perhaps that is what the Warriors are looking for. Not just spectacle, but structure. Not just technical evolution, but emotional evolution. Tactical projections show an almost perfect fit. His mobility in the paint aligns with the team's fluid style. His ability to switch defensively against guards, forwards, and centers complements the concept of collective defense. On offense, Adebayo would not just be a finisher, but a passer, facilitator, connector, someone who understands rhythm, spacing, and timing. In other words, someone who thinks the game. And in Golden State, thinking has always been as important as scoring. But signing a player of this caliber requires sacrifice. The name most mentioned in potential negotiations is Jonathan Kuminga, a raw, athletic, promising talent but still in development. Kuminga represents the distant future, while Adebayo symbolizes the immediate future. And it is in this dilemma that Golden State finds itself trapped. Risk tomorrow to strengthen today, or preserve tomorrow and accept a gradual decline. This type of decision is not resolved only with numbers. It involves intuition, vision, and courage. Futurists often say that sometimes the real mistake is not losing something valuable, but hesitating when opportunity arises. The Warriors' front office knows this. They do not fear difficult decisions. They fear late ones. While these discussions take place in offices, something much more powerful is happening inside the locker room. A silent, almost spiritual understanding that the cycle is changing. The veterans observe the young players more attentively, not because they fear being replaced, but because they understand the mission. They are not only defending titles, they are building a legacy not measured only by trophies, but by the culture that endures. Stephen Curry, with his calm leadership and enormous influence, has been approaching the young players with unusual intensity, not to teach how to shoot, but how to think, how to breathe the game, how to withstand pressure without losing joy. Draymond, in turn, has become an emotional mentor. His voice, once just fire, is now also a compass. He knows his role goes far beyond assists and steals. He shapes mindsets. He explains what it means to wear that jersey. And perhaps this environment is the true differential, because stars can fit into systems, but only leaders can fit into cultures. Inside, more than ever, Golden State refuses to accept the idea of reconstruction. The word everyone uses is evolution, a continuous movement without ruptures, without implosions, without reset. This vision requires patience, but also audacity. It demands respect for the past, but courage to transform it. And this transformation has already begun. In training sessions, Steve Kerr has tested more physical, more vertical, more aggressive lineups, not just to win the next game, but to discover the next style. The rotations are studied to project the game of tomorrow, not just today. In the analytics departments, charts show not only numbers, but trends. Lines indicating that basketball is changing, again, and Golden State does not want to follow that change. It wants to lead it again. Modernization is not only in the roster. It is in the heart of the franchise. New technologies, performance centers, partnerships with universities, artificial intelligence for biomechanical analysis, all to prolong careers, maximize potential, and discover what has not yet been discovered. Golden State does not just want to find new talent. It wants to create new talent, a laboratory of the future. The core idea is clear, not just to look for players, to look for heirs, not just to replace, but to pass on. And that is why the names of Morant and Adebayo represent much more than simple negotiations. They symbolize two possible paths, the path of the spark and the path of the structure, emotion and reason, risk and stability. There is no easy answer, but perhaps the real answer lies in the combination, a balance between Morant's wild energy and Adebayo's sober intelligence, a new identity built with fire and cement. Meanwhile, the world watches. Analysts try to decipher movements. Fans build theories. Journalists speculate, but only those on the inside understand. It is not about winning now, nor only about winning later. It is about continuing to win the way they always have, by reinventing. Because at Golden State, the story never ends. It just changes shape. Inside the silent reality known only to the backstage, an almost imperceptible feeling began spreading throughout the franchise environment. It was not fear nor anxiety. It was something deeper. A sense that everything being planned was not merely strategic, but inevitable, as if the organization were facing one of those moments in which history does not ask for permission. It simply happens. Executives, coaches, and players know that Golden State is living through a rare cycle, a moment in which the past is still alive, but the future is already knocking at the door. And it is exactly within this narrow space between what once was and what is about to be that historic decisions are made. Management considers, evaluates, calculates, but deep down everyone knows. The transformation will not just be technical, it will be human. That is why the name Bam Adebayo awakens so much reflection. He does not merely represent tactical reinforcement. He is the kind of piece that changes the way a group behaves. Players like him do not only execute functions on the court, they serve as an emotional bridge between generations. He has the maturity that calms, the discipline that spreads, the ethics that inspire. He is the type of athlete who does not arrive to replace, but to sustain, to keep alive the spirit of a winning culture. Some scouts within the franchise identified in Adebayo a trait that few notice. He moves as if he thinks the game before the others. He does not run just to mark. He runs to anticipate. He does not set screens merely by tactical pattern, but by strategic instinct. He sees angles, not just spaces. For a team that has always believed intelligence beats intensity, this profile has immeasurable value. But at the same time, there is the other side of the coin, the side of flame, the side of audacity, the side of unpredictability, the side that only players like Ja Morant are able to represent. Because as solid as Golden State's structure may be, there are moments when spectacle must be born from something that cannot be trained, from something that is not in charts, metrics, or simulations, something that simply explodes. Morant carries that element in every step, in every leap, every crossover, every vertical move that dismantles entire defenses. He embodies creative chaos, untamed art, pure impulse. And that is precisely what fascinates part of the management. Because Golden State did not build its history only with order, discipline, and logic. In many moments, it also built with boldness, intuition, and courage. The question circulating discreetly among executives is simple, but risky. Is it possible to unite these two forces, to create a new era with Adebayo's stability and Morant's unpredictability? A system balanced by intelligence and ignited by energy? A renewed Golden State without losing its essence? Inside the locker room, the perception is clear. The veterans do not fear this possibility. On the contrary, many see it as a chance to prolong the franchise's competitive life. Curry understands that with players like Adebayo, the team gains time. With players like Morant, it gains breadth. And with the current young core, it gains continuity. This thinking has created a new internal trend, the idea that Golden State is not just teaching its young players, it is testing whether they will one day be able to lead. Because learning is easy, but taking responsibility for keeping an identity alive requires much more than talent. It requires mentality, and mentality is not inherited. It is built. That is why training sessions have taken on a different character. Veterans began provoking the youngsters in tactical debates, questioning their decisions, asking for arguments for each choice made on the court. They do not want them to simply do. They want them to understand. Because the transition Golden State is preparing is not just about roster. It is about awareness. And that awareness will shape the future. Beyond internal preparation, another phenomenon has begun to emerge on the franchise's horizon: the silent respect of rivals. Those who once tried to imitate their style now observe with caution, not out of fear of recent victories, but because they realize Golden State is not willing to disappear like other dynasties. What is being built in San Francisco is not one last breath. It is a new breath. Analysts monitoring the market have already noticed that the franchise is repositioning itself, no longer just as a contender, but as a forerunner. An organization not only wanting to compete in modern basketball, but to shape the basketball yet to come. And that means the franchise's true goal is not in the next championship, it is in the next 10 years. Inside the team's intelligence department, projections indicate that the NBA's style of play is once again in transition. The era of spacing and small ball, initiated precisely by the Warriors, is evolving. The basketball of the future will increasingly feature hybrids, players capable of defending 5 positions, attacking with reading, creating actions without depending on a fixed system. And in this scenario, names like Adebayo and Morant become even more symbolic. One represents the new structural backbone, the other, the new creative engine. But this only works if there is a strong culture, and culture cannot be bought. Culture is built. That is why Golden State continues investing in human, emotional, and psychological development. The coaching staff knows that playing well is not enough. It is necessary to think well, feel well, react well. It is necessary to have purpose. The team that wants to influence a generation must first be influential. This thinking is being transmitted discreetly, silently, almost imperceptibly, but it exists in every detail, in speeches, in post-game conversations, in message exchanges between veterans and young players, in the way management avoids speaking of reconstruction and insists on evolution, in the way executives speak of the future without ever treating the present as disposable. And it is within this subtle space between today and tomorrow that the true Golden State is being reborn. What is underway is not a roster plan. It is an identity plan. On the outside, most people still see only rumors. Some analysts talk about possible trades. Others discuss the impact on the salary cap. But the real transformation is not in the numbers. It is in the meaning. Golden State is not just evaluating players. It is evaluating profiles, behaviors, symbols. Each name considered represents a type of future, and each decision will be a manifesto. Inside the organization, no one argues anymore about whether there will be a transition. The question now is how it will be conducted. There are three lines of thought quietly divided among executives, the coaching staff, and influential veterans. The first advocates for liquid reconstruction. It sees in the current squad a kind of competitive twilight. It believes the team can be strong, but not dominant, that some flashes still captivate, but no longer sustain over long seasons. For them, the path would be bold. Act now, move big pieces, bet on immediate renewal before the curtain falls. The second group believes in the mirror effect. They see the transition as something that is already happening internally. Players like Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and other youngsters have begun to absorb emotional and tactical nuances from the veterans. They do not just train together. They talk, observe, repeat. This means the original DNA can be transferred gradually, without rupture. For them, time is an ally, not an enemy. But it is the third group that sparks the most anticipation, the one that believes in the fusion of eras, the one that does not want to rebuild or preserve, but to reinvent, to maintain the system, but transform the engine, to preserve collective intelligence, but reignite the creative flame. In this vision, Bam Adebayo represents the structure, and Morant the spark, body and soul, order and chaos. A Golden State balanced between discipline and daring. This concept began to be deeply studied within the technical department. Analysts crossed Morant's playing style data with Warriors' offensive movement patterns. They noticed that although he has a more individual profile, there is room for adaptation, as long as they do not try to mold him, but guide him. It is not about turning Morant into someone different, but into someone more aware. At Golden State, he would not just be a protagonist. He would be part of a system that offers him purpose, and players with purpose play differently. With Adebayo, the study was even more detailed. Movement analyses show that he naturally executes several elements already present in the Warriors' system: handoff, reading motion, mobile screens, screen passes, creator pivot play. He is, in fact, one of the few centers in the NBA capable of translating into movement what Golden State believes in. That is why analysts say he would not be fitted into the system. He would continue to sustain it, but with a new body. And it is at this point that the emotional debate begins, because it is not just about the system, it is about legacy. Inside the locker room, conversations stop being merely strategic. They become personal. Veteran players no longer think only about titles. They think about heritage, about what will be left, about what will be remembered. Curry has quietly repeated the same sentence to the youngsters. Playing here is not just playing well. It is playing right. It is playing with purpose. That is why when the board meets, It does so with the awareness that it is making decisions that will echo for years. Signing Morant wouldn't just be bringing in a point guard. It would be bringing in a new face, a new emotional philosophy. Signing Adebayo would not just strengthen the paint, it would establish a new guardian of the culture, someone who represents silent work and communion with the group. Rivals, who once watched the franchise with curiosity, now watch with caution. Some say Golden State is about to attempt something never done before, extending a dynasty without breaking it. No team in league history has managed to lead consecutive cycles with distinct identities without losing its essence. Golden State wants to be the first. The market, in turn, is alert. Player agents, businessmen, and executives silently ask themselves who truly wants to go to Golden State, not for money or fame, but for what it represents. Culture matters. And that is why the franchise naturally attracts players who want to belong, not just appear. The youngsters in the squad are beginning to see this environment as a school. Some say they have never learned so much about basketball off the court as they have inside it. It is about understanding that the future is not built only with talent, but with values. Sacrifice, altruism, communication. The Warriors' style is not just tactical, it has soul. Within training sessions, this becomes evident. In simulated games, veterans deliberately step back from the spotlight and challenge the youngsters to make decisions. Decisive passes, spatial awareness, emotional control under pressure. They want to turn prospects into heirs. Playing is not enough. You have to lead. The coaching staff monitors everything, not just successes and mistakes, but reactions, behaviors, body language after failures, and the ability to restart. It is a silent but strategic observation, because Golden State has learned a valuable lesson over the years. What builds a championship team is not what you see in the stats, but what you perceive in the eyes. And that is why the Bay Area breathes something different. It is not just expectation, it is intuition. A feeling that something is about to happen, not a conventional announcement, not a common negotiation, something bigger, something that symbolizes the fusion of past, present, and future. The Warriors are not just looking for reinforcements, they are looking for heirs. And so the Golden State Warriors continue in silence, making decisions that will not just be contracts, but chapters written in the history of the NBA. It is no longer about thinking only about the next game, but about the next cycle. What is underway is not just a roster restructure. It is an identity transformation, a new way of existing, without losing the winning soul that conquered the world. The board is not just looking for good players. It is looking for heirs. It does not just expect results. It expects meaning. It is building something that goes beyond the court, tactics, or trophies. It is building legacy. It is planting the next era of Golden State, where the flame of creativity and the firm foundation of discipline will walk together. A rare fusion, a new form of greatness. The fans already sense it. The rivals already feel it. The NBA already watches with caution. It is not about a team trying to survive time. It is about a team trying to defeat it. And if you also feel that something big is coming, that a new era is about to be born, then this is the moment to support this journey. Because when this transformation finally happens, you will want to say that you were here from the beginning, following every detail of this historic turning point. So, if you believe in this evolution, if this story stirred your imagination, if you want to keep following every development of this new era, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. It helps immensely and shows that you are part of this movement, because the future is arriving, and it will wear blue and gold. See you in the next chapter of this epic transformation.